Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Part 159 based on novel. So let's start. A skeletal head flew towards Huiyuhao at this moment, and it released a yellow circle from its surface. It was coming right at Huiyuhao as the skull suddenly opened its mouth, and the skeletal head rapidly swelled as it chomped down on Huiyuhao. The skull itself shone with intense green light. Huiyuhao could feel a tremendous force pulling on him. This force wasn't targeted at his body, but was targeted at his spirit instead. This terrifying pulling force seemed like it was going to consume his entire spirit. He lives up to his name as an evil soul master. He's going straight for the spirit. Huiyuhao was a lot slower than before. Otherwise, the evil soul master wouldn't have caught up with him. He didn't rely on his soul thrusters to widen the gap like before, but tapped the tip of his foot gently on the ground as he spun around. What the evil soul master saw were Huiyuhao's glowing eyes. Those eyes had boundless clarity, and two rose-gold beams of light fired from those eyes in the next moment. The evil soul sage felt like a giant mallet hammered on his spiritual sea in that instant as torrential waves stirred up inside his spiritual sea. He howled agonizingly as green light shone from his body while he plummeted from the sky. The giant skull which had its mouth open against Huiyuhao froze in midair at the same time. Huiyuhao vanished into thin air with a flash. He reappeared right in front of the evil soul sage as he used his left leg soul bone skill, instant teleportation. 1 versus 1, and soul master against soul master was what Huiyuhao was best at. Back when he was still on exchange at the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy, he had once relied on his own strength to defeat every single one of their members without taking a single loss. His formidable individual fighting strength was displayed once more. Huiyuhao used spiritual shock, and even though his opponent was a soul sage and Huiyuhao didn't use his Eye of Destiny, the evil soul sage bled from his mouth and nose as his spirit was severely damaged. The evil soul sage fought with his life to recover, so that he could regain control of his body. However, spiritual shock wasn't something that was easy to deal with. The evil soul sage stared into Huiyuhao's eyes that were right in front of him. He felt a chill run down his spine, and only then did he realize that his opponent was probably much less simple than he had imagined. In this moment, this was the first time that he wished soul engineers would come and rescue him. But how would that be possible? Huiyuhao's spiritual detection was in control of everything, and how could Huiyuhao make his move if he didn't find the most suitable opportunity? Since he had made his move, how could he still give his opponent a chance to retaliate? Huiyuhao's 7 soul rings immediately disappeared, as those were conjured with imitation. How could he display his soul rings' true colors for evil soul masters to see? There were still aerial surveillance soul tools monitoring them from above as well. The air around them contorted vigorously as the evil soul sage groaned once more. Spiritual blast. This was a spiritual blast unleashed right at his head. The evil soul sage was still affected by what had happened before, and he couldn't resist Huiyuhao's spiritual blast at all as the torturous pain made him cry out painfully once more. Light shaped like a whirlpool appeared above his head. Spiritual confusion, another of Huiyuhao's powerful single-target control skills. Huiyuhao would take control until the end, since he started it. Huiyuhao had always been training in both offense and control. He mostly played the role of an assault-type soul master, but his control-type abilities were more powerful. Even a soul dolor would have trouble tiding through 3 formidable spiritual-type soul skills used one after another. So what if his opponent was an evil soul master? Evil soul master spirits were stronger than typical soul masters, but that was useless against Huiyuhao. Huiyuhao's entire being turned bluish-green. An enormous bluish-green pillar of light blasted from his skeleton. That was the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion's Ice Empress Wrath, one of the 2 great soul skills bestowed upon him by her skeleton. The evil soul sage no longer had any soul power to resist, and his spiritual sea was a complete mess, as he had been severely injured. This evil soul sage, who had always been so arrogant, immediately became a frozen statue. Huiyuhao raised his hand and slapped the frozen statue before he disappeared into the air with it. He activated imitation once more as he stored the frozen statue in his storage-type soul tool. Storage-type soul tools couldn't store living beings because there was no air inside. Any kind of living being inside would die, they would have to break out with their own strength. But this evil soul sage was special. He wouldn't die for a while after being frozen by Hui Yuhao's ultimate ice. At least, he wouldn't need air. Hui Yuhao wanted to leave this place first before dealing with him. Hui Yuhao had accomplished his goal, and he turned as he was about to leave when everything seemed to change around him. The Heavenly Soul Empire's royal palace, which was in disarray because of the blizzard, suddenly quieted down to the point where the silence was terrifying. Even the streets became completely silent, and that silence was the kind as if all sound had disappeared. Hui Yuhao was just about to leave, but he seemed like he was immobilized as he stood there, motionless. His entire body appeared listless. Hui Yuhao wasn't afraid when he was facing an army of a few thousand soldiers, but beads of sweat started to appear on his face within a few short breaths. He tried his best to calm himself down, but his emotions were making him quiver uncontrollably. This pressure came entirely from his spirit, and this was the first time Hui Yuhao had experienced something as sinister as this since he began plying his craft. Of course, the royal palace didn't actually have no sounds, and the chaos couldn't settle down instantly. Everything suddenly grew quiet around him because he couldn't hear a single person. Suddenly, footsteps could be heard. Just footsteps, one person's footsteps. This was the only thing Hui Yuhao could hear with his current sense of hearing. A silhouette appeared at the end of the street and slowly walked towards him. There seemed to be a dense fog around him, and even a person as powerful as Hui Yuhao couldn't see everything about him. Hui Yuhao felt like all he could see was a patch of darkness, like this person was a darkness that consumed everything around him. This person had never appeared in Hui Yuhao's spiritual detection, and this danger had come so suddenly. Everything was so sudden that Hui Yuhao didn't know how to defend himself. That silhouette wasn't walking too quickly or too slowly. Hui Yuhao was using imitation to conceal his tracks, but that had no effect against that person. They finally came closer, and he was about 10 meters away from Hui Yuhao before he stopped. The fog cleared, and Hui Yuhao was stunned. He knew this man. If Hui Yuhao had a ranking of the most powerful individuals on the continent, this person before him would be ranked among the top 3 of those who were currently alive. At least, he would be ranked as such among those powerful individuals that Hui Yuhao had seen before. I'm surprised that it's you. If Shishui hadn't told me about your existence, it would have been hard to believe that you'd grown to such a standard after a few short years. The voice sounded old, and there were tinges of benevolence and warmth, as if he were talking to a friend. Hui Yuhao said plainly, I am also surprised that I'm able to see you here. Greetings, Senior Long. Yes, this person who seemed like he controlled everything around them, the person who had appeared before Hui Yuhao, and who seemed to have merged into the darkness, was one of the 2 ultimate Dolor that he knew of, the Darkness Holy Dragon, the Dragon Emperor Dolor, Long Xiaoyao. He was a man who had once shared a reputation with the Dragon God Dolor, Mu En, and they belonged to the same generation. Hui Yuhao's heart sunk right down when he saw Long Xiaoyao. He was very clear that a person like Long Xiaoyao wasn't someone that he could fight against. Long Xiaoyao was powerful to the point that Hui Yuhao couldn't even properly imagine it. Hui Yuhao's mindset would probably have been better if this had happened before he had formed his soul core, and that was because he only understood after forming his soul core how much more powerful Ultimate Dolor were compared to Transcendent Dolor. Ultimate Dolor were humans who could fight against the beast god, Di Qian, whose soul power was entirely presented as soul cores. Long Xiaoyao was clad in black, and his hair was all white. He wasn't much different from when Hui Yuhao had first seen him. The reason why Hui Yuhao didn't expect to see him here was because Long Xiaoyao had never appeared on the Heavenly Soul Empire's battlefields amongst all the intelligence that Hui Yuhao knew about. In this moment, Long Xiaoyao's appearance undoubtedly severed every single one of Hui Yuhao's escape routes. Youngster, I still vividly remember the wager we had. You gave me a pleasant surprise back then, but you have given me so many more pleasant surprises in this moment. You are a soul sage, and judging from your soul power undulations, you're not far from becoming a soul Dolor. Brother Mu has taken in an excellent disciple. Long Xiaoyao seemed to lament a little as he spoke. He placed his hands behind his back and gazed into the sky. Who knew what he was thinking about? Don't mention my teacher. If teacher were still alive, he would be ashamed to stand with you. Hui Yuhao answered coldly. His strength couldn't even begin to compare to Long Xiaoyao's strength. However, Hui Yuhao was not afraid, as strength and authority couldn't bend his will. The Darkness Holy Dragon, Long Xiaoyao, was following the Holy Ghost Church, and that was something that Hui Yuhao held in contempt. Long Xiaoyao frowned and said, "You youngsters don't understand matters of the older generations." Hui Yuhao laughed coldly and said, "No, I do not understand. All I know is that you have chosen to take the side of the Evilders, and who knows how many people you've helped the Holy Ghost Church massacre. Many of the things that the Holy Ghost Church has done are a result of your existence. I really don't understand. At your level, why do you allow yourself to be used by evil soul masters, and why do you help them destroy lives and create calamities? Do you know that if this is allowed to continue, and if the Sun Moon Empire conquers the continent, the Holy Ghost Church's next target will be to take over? When that happens, all of humanity will probably become the Holy Ghost Church's slaves, and they will give their lives and everything they have for evil soul masters to cultivate. Is hell on earth something you want to see?" Long Xiaoyao's expression changed slightly as he said hoarsely, "It's not as serious as you make it out to be. Do you think evil soul masters are born evil? You and a great many other soul masters are wrong on this matter. The truth is, almost every evil soul master deserves pity, and that's because the world shuns them due to their martial soul's characteristics. They have had to go through much pain and bitterness in their earlier days, and that's the reason why their personalities are a little extreme. I believe that if the Sun Moon Empire conquers the continent in the end and corrects the reputation of evil soul masters, everything will be different. They will control themselves, and as for who rules over the continent, that's not something that I'm concerned about." Hui Yuhao laughed, and his laughter was very disdainful. "Yes, perhaps what you said does make some sense. There are many evil soul masters who deserve pity when they were younger. However, they start killing people because they have received unfair treatment, and they use all kinds of evil methods to strengthen themselves. How can that be the right thing to do? I may not know about others, but let's talk about the death god Dolor, Yi Shishui. I am willing to call her my senior because of my teacher, but it seems like she's the demon king among humanity. You are not allowed to talk about Yi Shishui." Long Xiaoyao's eyes suddenly grew focused, and Hui Yuhao felt as if his body was held in place by some tremendous power. This frightening strength was pressing against his body, like he was about to be ground into dust. However, he gritted his teeth and held on as he said with difficulty, "Am I wrong? She's the death god Dolor, and she controls the death god pagoda. The reason why the death god pagoda is so powerful is because it incinerates people's spirits when it fires at full strength, while thousands of spirits are burned through every time it fires. I saw it with my own eyes, and from what it looked like, there were at least tens of thousands of spirits inside. That means tens of thousands of lives. How many evil soul masters are there? Every single one of them is a life, but does this mean those people that they so mercilessly slaughtered are not considered lives? Yi Shishui hasn't just been killing people. She has imprisoned their spirits, and she will ultimately incinerate their spirits for an attack, and eventually obliterate them. Are such brutal and cruel methods things you wish to see?" Long Xiaoyao fell silent after Hui Yuhao's string of accusations. Of course, he knew that every single one of Hui Yuhao's words was true. Long Xiaoyao heaved a faint sigh and shook his head. "I cannot turn back anymore. I am willing to do anything for Shishui, and the only thing I can do now is to restrain myself so that I don't kill people. I'm not clear as to what the Holy Ghost Church has done, but I do know something. Shishui has told that after the continent is united, there will be a new order, and true peace will only happen when that time comes." Hui Yuhao said nothing more. He knew that he could no longer move the Dragon Emperor Dolor. He stared coldly at him, but he was full of lament in his heart. But he still had some hope. He couldn't fight against the Dragon Emperor Dolor by himself. However, he still had the Beast God's reverse scale on his body. Hui Yuhao had managed to escape with his life from the Death God Dolor's clutches with the reverse scale's protection. The beast god would naturally appear if Long Xiaoyao attacked him, and he felt absolutely threatened. Furthermore, Hui Yuhao now had his soul core, and the amount of energy his body could sustain was greatly boosted after he absorbed the manifold mysterious ice essence. Killing him wouldn't be that easy. Long Xiaoyao said plainly, "You're hoping for the beast god's strength to protect you, eh?" Hui Yuhao's eyes grew focused, but he said nothing. Long Xiaoyao smiled faintly when he saw Hui Yuhao's silent consent. "Youngster, I am actually very interested in you. You're so young, yet you can reach such a cultivation rank. That is considered extremely prodigious. Shishui has long told me about your situation, and I definitely won't make the same mistake. In front of an ultimate Dolor, you can't defend yourself just because you have some protective abilities. Furthermore..." Long Xiaoyao suddenly paused, and turned around towards a rooftop by the side of the street. He grabbed with his right hand through the air and said, "You've been watching for a while now. Come out, lady." The quiet and dark world suddenly seemed to return to normal, and the sounds that Hui Yuhao couldn't hear reappeared once more. "Ah!" A crisp exclamation rang out as a shadow was pulled from the sky by a formless strength, and this shadow fell not far behind Hui Yuhao. Hui Yuhao felt a little relieved as the pressure Long Xiaoyao had unleashed against him vanished completely. He glanced backwards subconsciously, and this time, he was truly astonished. Just as he couldn't sense Long Xiaoyao's presence, he also didn't sense this person's presence with spiritual detection. Hui Yuhao's spiritual detection was powerful, but it still had a focus. For instance, Hui Yuhao would only pay first attention to strong soul power undulations when he was using spiritual detection over a large area. He naturally wouldn't pay much attention to normal citizens who didn't have any soul power undulations, since these people didn't threaten him much anyway. If somebody deliberately suppressed their soul power in a group of people with the right method, Hui Yuhao would have a hard time finding them. But if his opponent wanted to attack him, his opponent would have to channel soul power and come closer to him. There was only one reason why he didn't discover this person, and that was because this person was sufficiently familiar with him. This person knew about his spiritual detection, and this person had been hiding in the street beside the royal palace while concealing her soul power. She didn't make any moves at all. Why are you here?" Hui Yuhao's voice was actually trembling in contrast to his calmness before. He wasn't afraid at all if he faced against the Dragon Emperor Dolor by himself. The worst that could happen was death, and he had been at the borders of death countless times. But he could no longer keep his cool as he stared at this person in front of him, and that was because she looked identical to Donga. She was Tang Wutong. Tang Wutong didn't land on the ground stably, but she wasn't wretched enough to fall face first into the ground. The Darkness Holy Dragon was still merciful against girls. She stood up and stared calmly at Hui Yuhao. "Why can't I be here?" The corner of Hui Yuhao's mouth curved into a forced smile. There was nothing more to be said. They were facing the Darkness Holy Dragon. How could they just run away even if they wanted to? There was no more meaning to pursuing the reason behind why Tang Wutong was here. Long Xiaoyao smiled and said, "What a pretty little girl. She has been hiding by the side for a while, and she has considered attacking me more than once after I showed up, but she just couldn't find an opportunity. With her around, I trust your beast god's powers won't be that effective. Let's find another place. This place is too noisy." Long Xiaoyao waved his hand as he spoke, and everything descended into silence and darkness once more. Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong immediately felt a terrifying soul power undulation rise up in the next moment. This wave of soul power poured out in all directions, with them at the center. That formidable soul power was filled with darkness, that it was impossible to fight against. The soul power swept them up as the space around them began to contort. Hui Yuhao wanted to use spiritual detection to investigate what was going on, but his spiritual power couldn't leave his body at all. Is this an ultimate Dolor's power? Hui Yuhao's cultivation was far from sufficient. However, he had encountered many top-tier individuals before, and his senses were extremely powerful. Hui Yuhao could faintly feel that the Darkness Holy Dragon's cultivation was probably higher than Yi Shishui's. They were both ultimate Dolor, but the Darkness Holy Dragon's pure fighting strength was probably stronger. He wondered if his teacher was stronger than the darkness holy dragon when he was in his prime. Tang Wutong subconsciously arrived beside Hu Yuhao, and she grabbed his arm nervously. Hu Yuhao turned back towards her as he channeled his soul power to protect them. Tang Wutong looked at him and asked, "Do you really want to know why I'm here?" Hu Yuhao forced a laugh and said, "Do you really think that holds any meaning anymore? Why didn't you run when you saw the darkness holy dragon?" "Why should I run?" Tang Wutong said plainly, "Furthermore, do you really think I can escape? His senses are different from your spiritual detection. You detect things as a whole, but his senses are very fine and delicate. When he appeared and discovered you while you were using imitation, he naturally discovered me as well. I couldn't escape even if I wanted to." Hu Yuhao heaved a sigh and said, "Then why did you come?" Tang Wutong said, "Eldest senior brother was worried about you, and after Chiu returned, he asked someone to go and bring you to go back as quickly as possible. He didn't want you to continue searching for Tang Ya, and I am the messenger. I heard Nen Chiu's report about your travels, and I figured that you'd be looking for intel inside Heaven Do City, so here I am. I just heard about that tremendous explosion inside the royal palace, so I began to search for your tracks. See, I've only managed to find you now." Hu Yuhao didn't know what to say. Could he say that Tang Wutong was unlucky? But for some reason, he felt very safe and secure when he saw her. The darkness holy dragon seems like he has some way to block the beast god's strength. Am I going to die with Tang Wutong here today? That's not so bad. At least, even though she isn't Donna, she looks exactly like her. Tang Wutong glanced at him and said, "What are you thinking about? Are you trying to escape?" Hu Yuhao shook his head and said, "It's too difficult for us to run away in front of an ultimate Dolor. I can feel that the darkness holy dragon is probably stronger than the death god Dolor, whom we've encountered before. Why do you look like you're not worried at all?" Tang Wutong smiled, and her smile was just so beautiful. Her smile was just like Donga's smile, except she didn't have Donga's tenderness when she was looking at him. Instead, there was an extra tinge of courage. "Why should I be worried? Will worrying ensure my safety? Since that's not going to happen, then there's no point in worrying. If we have to die, then we will die fighting. This isn't the first time that we've fought side by side." Hu Yuhao also laughed. "Yes? Even if we die, we will die fighting. I'm very honored to experience this battle with you. At the very least, we are the rare few in the continent who have battled Ultimate Dolor one after another." Tang Wutong released his arm and patted him gently on his shoulder. "Don't worry, I'll protect you." Hu Yuhao rolled his eyes and said, "You protect me? More like I'll protect you." Just as they were talking, the dark air around them suddenly stabilized as their surroundings became clear once more, and sound returned, along with sight. However, Hu Yuhao and Tang Wutong were both momentarily stunned. They were no longer outside the Heavenly Soul Empire's royal palace. There wasn't a single trace of urbanization. They were clearly somewhere in the wilderness. What did that mean? It meant that the darkness holy dragon had used his own strength to bring them both out of Heaven Do City into the wilderness. That was just unbelievable. This was an ultimate Dolor's power. Perhaps he didn't yet have the beast god's ability to pierce through space-time, but even then, to be able to bring them both to this place unwittingly within such a short period of time was far beyond Hu Yuhao's understanding. The Dragon Emperor Dolor smiled as he watched their stern expressions. "What's wrong? Are you afraid?" Tang Wutong grunted contemptuously. "Afraid? What's there to be afraid of? You've just been alive for a few more years than we have. If we had lived in the same generation, you might be afraid of us." "Yes?" Long Xiaoyao laughed. "You're right. If we were in the same generation, I may not have been able to defeat you. You are prodigies of your generation, but I was also a prodigy back then. Now that I think about it, I feel like 200 years is right before my eyes." A tinge of lament appeared in his eyes as he spoke. He nodded gently in Tang Wutong and Hu Yuhao's direction and said, "Come, the two of you can team up. Let me see what kind of fighting strength you prodigious youngsters can achieve." don't think of escaping, because that's absolutely impossible. Fight with your full strength. Warriors who die on the battlefield die an honorable death. Hu Yuhao and Tang Wutong glanced at each other, and they each saw the other's determination. Hu Yuhao took a slow step forward, and his eye of destiny gradually opened on his forehead. Tang Wutong didn't fight with him for point position. Instead, she took a step back and stood behind him. Their martial souls were unleashed at almost the same time, and 7 soul rings swiftly rose into the air. Hu Yuhao unleashed his spirit eyes. 7 soul rings that were completely out of the ordinary swiftly appeared, and the most eye-catching one was his blood-red soul ring, which appeared at the end. His spirit eye's 6th soul ring came from Wang Qiao. The soul ring that she had given him was very special, and it was rose gold in color. It didn't share the same color as normal soul rings, but it shared a color with his eye of destiny instead. His 7th soul ring came from a 100,000-year evil-eye tyrant, and it was also red. These 2 soul rings were the most glaring amongst his 7 soul rings. Hu Yuhao began to release his formidable soul power, and his entire being seemed to faintly contort. He didn't move immediately, but was just standing there quietly as he stared at Long Xiaoyao. His 7 soul rings glowed one after another. Long Xiaoyao seemed surprised when he saw Hu Yuhao's 7 soul rings. This was the first time that he had seen such a combination. However, the soul rings that he was looking at didn't include the 100,000-year soul ring at the end. Even though it was a 100,000-year soul ring, this arrangement was very normal. One of the 2 soul rings that attracted his attention was Hu Yuhao's rose gold ring, his 6th one, which was filled with the power of destiny. The other one was his white soul ring, his first one, which looked like it was no different from a 10-year soul ring. How powerful was the Darkness Holy Dragon, the Dragon Emperor Doluo? This white ring looked like a 10-year soul ring in normal people's eyes, but that wasn't the case to him. He was very clear on what 10-year soul rings were like. They were white, but they radiated a drastically different aura. Even though the soul power in Hu Yuhao's 10-year soul ring was completely contained, along with its aura, Hu Yuhao's white soul ring had a smoothness that 10-year soul rings didn't have. Faint golden patterns could be seen on its surface, and that was absolutely something that 10-year soul rings couldn't achieve. There's something wrong with this kid's soul rings. Long Xiaoyao thought to himself. Hu Yuhao wasn't hasty to make his move at all. He was just standing there like a statue. Very smart. Long Xiaoyao praised Hu Yuhao in his mind. This kid knows that I, with my status, will never take the initiative to attack him without him making a move first. He wants to raise his aura and his abilities to their highest possible level before attacking me. But would that really be effective? Hu Yuhao's eye of destiny gradually opened on his forehead. Rose gold sun patterns of the stretched in all directions with his eye of destiny in the middle. His eyes slowly closed, like he was using his eye of destiny to view the world. The light in his eye of destiny was crystal clear. Even Long Xiaoyao felt like his eye of destiny possessed a strange gravitational force when he took but one look, as if this eye was going to consume his soul. Rose gold patterns glowed as dense spiritual undulations strengthened at an incredible speed. Long Xiaoyao wasn't particularly concerned in the beginning, but an astonished expression quickly began to show on his elderly face. Such formidable spiritual power. Furthermore, his spiritual power is so pure and condensed. Even the Holy Ghost Church's evil soul masters, who use special methods to cultivate their spiritual power, can only reach such a level of spiritual power when they become soul doluo. How is this young man doing this? Hu Yuhao's spiritual power continued to strengthen amid Long Xiaoyao's surprise. His spiritual power wasn't just changing quantitatively, it was also changing qualitatively. Long Xiaoyao wasn't the only one who was astonished. Tang Wutong, who was standing behind him, was equally surprised. She had known Hu Yuhao for quite some time, and they had fought side by side before. Back in the Mingdou mountain range, the two of them went deep into enemy lines together. But because of the death god Doluo's appearance, she didn't see Hu Yuhao's battle with Yi Shishui. Tang Wutong knew that Hu Yuhao was very strong, but she had always believed that her overall strength wasn't inferior to his. However, she was now starting to doubt that opinion. Hui Yuhao's continuously rising spiritual undulations were far stronger than what his cultivation rank could normally achieve. Condensed soul power gradually transformed into circles of rose-gold light. This light was very viscous, while Hui Yuhao's body became a little blurry amid all those contorting lights. Hui Yuhao's body gradually floated into the sky as his seventh blood-red soul ring flickered. Rose-gold patterns appeared behind his back, forming an image of the three-eyed golden lion. Everything within several hundred meters of him, which included the light around Long Xiaoyao, was tainted with the same colors. Long Xiaoyao sighed in amazement. Is his spiritual power close to that of a titled Dolor's level? No, that's not right. His spiritual power is similar in strength to a titled Dolor, but it is more condensed, and is on another level. All of a sudden, blinding rose-gold patterns radiated all around Hui Yuhao, and his body seemed to vanish entirely within them. A vertical eye that seemed material suddenly appeared in midair, and the intense spiritual power undulations rose to their highest possible level. Materialization of spiritual power. Long Xiaoyao's eyes grew focused. The Hui Yuhao who was still sitting in a restaurant outside the royal palace suddenly dissipated as it disappeared into countless rose-gold light patterns that swiftly flew out of the city. Hui Yuhao had left that spiritual avatar as his contingency plan, so that he could substitute it for his original body as he was running away to draw the soldiers chasing him away. However, this spiritual avatar lost its meaning when the Dragon Emperor Doluo appeared. As Hui Yuhao unleashed his spiritual power with his full strength, that thread of his spiritual power was immediately recalled by the Eye of the Azura. Radiant golden light transformed into an enormous pillar of light as it surged into the sky. The rose-gold vertical eye was just hovering there, and a strange whirlpool spun rapidly within the coldness of the vertical eye's pupil. All of the space that was covered by its rose-gold light began to contort in this moment. For the first time, a truly astonished look appeared on the Dragon Emperor Doluo's face. He had originally believed that he was already holding Hui Yuhao in high regard, but it seemed like his judgment was far from sufficient. The spiritual power that this youth displayed far surpassed that of normal titled Doluo, and with Long Xiaoyao's 200 years of experience, he could be entirely sure that even transcendent Dulu would have a hard time reaching Hui Yuhao's level of spiritual power. Materializing spiritual power wasn't something that happened with improving one's soul power or cultivation rank. This was an attribute that formidable spiritual-type soul masters could achieve. Furthermore, Long Xiaoyao could feel a soul core within his materialized martial soul true body. This was the core of why he was so astonished. Hui Yuhao was a young soul sage, and yet he already possessed a soul core. It was also a soul core for a spiritual-type martial soul. Brother Mu, oh Brother Mu. What kind of disciple have you taken in? The judgment of destiny. Hui Yuhao's ice-cold voice echoed through the twisting space, and a golden skull appeared soundlessly above Long Xiaoyao's head. The skull was shattered in the next moment as it transformed into countless motes of flowing light that flowed into Long Xiaoyao's body. Even an ultimate Doluo like Long Xiaoyao couldn't resist the power of destiny. The darkness around him rippled vigorously, but couldn't dispel the golden light, and he could only allow them into his body. Yes, this was the Eye of Destiny's ability to unleash the judgment of destiny. It couldn't decide the outcome of a battle, but it could change one's destiny. Long Xiaoyao chuckled as he muttered under his breath, I haven't been this surprised in a long time. Interesting, very interesting. Two beams of light blasted from the enormous vertical eye, one black and the other white, as they circled around each other and went straight for Long Xiaoyao. This video will end here.